Brother Mark, will you open us up in prayer?
Dear loving, gracious Heavenly Father, we give you glory, we thank you for all the praise and honor and glory. Thank you, dear Father, for spirit, we thank you for power, and for you, King. Dear Father, we ask you to bless us in our heart, mind, and soul here this morning. We ask you to bless those teachers and bring us the word, dear Father. We might be according to your will, according to your purpose, whatever it may be. Dear Father, we just ask you to protect us and watch over us. Thank you, dear Father. In the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, I pray. Amen.
Amen. We're going to continue on in the book of Psalms. We'll be starting in Psalms 33. This one doesn't have any preamble or anything. It's just Psalm 33. It says, "Rejoice in the Lord, O ye righteous, for praise is comely for the upright. Praise the Lord with harp. Sing unto him with the psaltery and an instrument of 10 strings." You know, it's interesting, and there may be no correlation, but if you there's a thing called the string theory, and it gets into quantum mechanics, but they say there's 10 dimensions of reality, and they're single strings. And I looked it up last night. Just look up string theory. It's interesting. I don't know. It's every time it mentions the instrument of strings, it's 10 strings in the Bible. 10 strings. Now, whether it has anything to do with it, I don't know. But look up string theory. Sing unto him a new song and play skillfully with a loud noise. Reckon that's where all the noise from concerts came from? Y'all ever been to a concert? Lord. For the word of the Lord is right, and all his works are done in truth. You know, I've said before, most people lie because they don't have the power to overcome a situation. Well, if you think about it, that's the reason God don't have to lie, because he has all the power. You know, so, and there's other reasons for lying, but, you know. He loveth righteousness and judgment. The earth is full of the goodness of the Lord. In goodness here, you can also put in mercy. By the word of the Lord were the heavens made, and all the host of them by the breath of his mouth. I love that. I go back to Genesis, and God said, and God said, and all these things were done. He gathereth the waters of the sea together as a heap. He layeth up the depth in storehouses. And you can reference Genesis 1, around verse 9, I think, on that. Let all the earth fear the Lord. Let all the inhabitants of the world stand in awe of him. Look at creation. If you can't look at creation and stand in awe of the Lord just over that, you know, it's go out at night sometime on a clear night and look at the heaven. It's pretty incredible. For he spake, and it was done. He commanded, and it stood fast. The Lord bringeth the counsel of heathen to naught. He maketh the devices of the people to none effect. And you can really see this at play today. I'm going to use the United Nations as an example. I looked up their purpose statement, their mission statement. It says their purposes are to maintain international peace and security, develop friendly relations among nations, achieve international cooperation, and serve as a center for harmonizing the actions of nations. How can that even work? Most of them don't believe in the God that I serve. How can that work? It hasn't. Look back through history, the United Nations hasn't done anything, but the Lord bringeth the counsel of the heathen to naught. He maketh the devices of the people of none effect. That can't work. The United Nations, that is. Verse 11, the counsel of the Lord standeth forever, the thoughts of his heart to all generations. Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. That should be on every public government building in the nation, so we don't forget. Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord, and the people whom he hath chosen for his own inheritance. The Lord looketh from heaven, he beholdeth all the sons of men. Looketh here means to look, to regard, or to gaze intently upon. So if you put that in mind, the Lord looketh from heaven and gaze intently upon all the sons of men. There's times I probably don't want him gazing at me. That's a shame that I am to say it. From the place of his habitation, he looketh upon all the inhabitants of the earth. When you're reading the Bible, God is always looking down, seeing what's going on. He fashioned their hearts alike. He considereth all their works. Fashioneth all their hearts alike, and considereth all their works. You know, in Hebrews chapter 4, I believe it is, 4 and 12, you know, it says that the Lord is a discerner of the thoughts and intents of the heart. There's times I don't know and discern here means to judge. So he is gazing upon us, and he's judging the intents of our heart. There's times I don't want him looking at that neither. There is no king saved by the multitude of a host. A mighty man is not delivered by much strength. Who delivers you? The Lord. You know, I come across this while studying this. It says at the Battle of Arabella, King Darius had 1 million-man army. And Alexander the Great had a 50,000-man army. This is secular history. Well, statistically, you'd think Darius would run all over him. No. King Darius lost. 1 million men, and he couldn't get it done. Now, can you imagine 1 million people being gathered in one place to do battle? That's a lot of people. There is no king saved by the multitude of a host. And the reason this is brought out is because King Darius was actually there at the battle, the way I read this thing. And he had actually cleared off a section of land for this to take place. He had set the stage. He was going to get rid of Alexander the Great. Well, Alexander kept attacking and pulling back. And every time he pulled back, he drawed the Persians closer, further away from their chosen battle site, and it started getting into rougher ground, and they couldn't use their chariots and horses. So when they done that, he sent out some flanking maneuvers, which drawed them away, and he and a host of men went directly to the center of that army, and King Darius was there, and he fled. And when he fled, everybody fled. So there is no king saved by a multitude of hosts. He had 1 million men around him and still run off. A mighty man is not delivered by much strength. A horse is a vain thing for safety. Neither shall he deliver any by his great strength. In that day and time, the horse and chariot was the Abrams tank of the battlefield. You could put several men on it with spears, archers, and they had these things on the wheels that spun as they went, that it would cut you to pieces. But the Lord's saying that that's not going to deliver you either. And, you know, if you think about horses and chariots, it didn't work out for Pharaoh. You know, he chased them into the Red Sea and was destroyed for his horses and chariots. I'm just saying. Behold, the eye of the Lord is upon them that fear him, upon them that hope in his mercy, to deliver their soul from death and to keep them alive in famine. Our soul waiteth for the Lord, for he is our help and our shield. For our heart shall rejoice in him, because we have trusted in his holy name. Let thy mercy, O Lord, be upon us, according as we hope in thee. What's interesting about Psalm 33 is it opens and closes with rejoicing. I like that. Yes, sir. Yeah. What Brother Johnny was saying is, if you go back to verse 2, it says, praise the Lord with harp, singeth him unto him with the psaltery and the instrument of 10 strings. But before that, in verse 1, it says, rejoice in the Lord, O ye righteous, for praise is comely for the upright. And the word comely here does mean it just comes natural. When the Spirit moves there, you know, it's and you know, there's times that I probably ought to be singing praises and I don't. You know what I'm saying? It's a man gets too wound up in other things sometimes, and those other things really don't matter. All right, Psalm 34. This is a psalm of David when he changed his behavior before Abimelech that drove him away and he departed. Okay, now there is some controversy on this because the scoffers of the Bible will use this as a reference. Abimelech. The king he went to, if you go to 2 Samuel chapter 21, the king is King Ashish. Well, that was the king's name, was Ashish. Abimelech is a title. All their kings were called Abimelechs, just like the pharaohs. The pharaoh, he had Pharaoh, Ramses, and all this, but they were all pharaohs. That wasn't their name, that was their title. Well, Abimelech is a title. And if y'all have read this, you know, David goes to Ashish, which was the king of Gath, and the men are saying, isn't this David? You know, they sing songs about him. King Saul killed his hundreds, and David killed his thousands. And when David heard this, he started fearing for his life, so he started acting like a madman, beating at the doors and foaming at the mouth and all that. And the king said, this guy's crazy. Just let him go on. I don't have no use for him. But anyway, it's interesting to read. But Abimelech is a title. It is not a name. It's actually King Ashish. And this psalm's written with 4 sets of instructions. Verses 1 through 3 is bless the Lord. 4 through 8 is seek the Lord. 9 through 16 is fear the Lord. And 17 through 22 is trust the Lord. So we'll start here. It says, I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall continually be in my mouth. I could take some lessons from that. My soul shall make her boast in the Lord. The humble shall hear thereof and be glad. Oh, magnify the Lord with me, and let us exalt his name together. Yeah, I could learn some lessons from that right there. I sought the Lord, and he delivered me, heard me, and delivered me from all my fears. They looked unto him when were lightened, and their faces were not ashamed. The poor man cried, and the Lord heard him and saved him out of all his troubles. The angel of the Lord encampeth round about them that fear him, and delivereth them. Oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the man that trusteth in the Lord. I like it here. He's been delivered. He's been saved. He's got protection all right there in that little spot. But here, the angel of the Lord. And I've done quite a bit of reading on this. And this possibly, you couldn't build no doctrine on it, but this is possibly the pre-incarnate Jesus. This was Christ before he come in human form. The angel of the Lord. And you know, Hebrews 13:5, I believe it is, says, I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. And is that Jesus here? Possibly. I don't have any way of knowing that for sure. Verse 9, I like this. It says, Oh, fear the Lord, ye his saints, for there is no want to them that fear him. And I read a quote by a guy several years ago on this psalm, and I can't remember his name. I usually try to give credit, but I can't remember his name. Oh, fear the Lord, ye his saints, for there is no want to them that fear him. And that guy's quote was, if you fear the Lord, you don't have to fear anything else. And you can read about a little more on that in Romans 8:28. Verse 10, the young lions do lack and suffer hunger, but they that seek the Lord shall not want any good thing. Come, ye children, hearken unto me, and I will teach you the fear of the Lord. What man is it that desireth life and loveth many days, that he may see good? Okay, and he's going to give you some prerequisites to do this. It says, keep thy tongue from evil. Don't be doing no gossip, and thy lips from speaking guile. Depart from evil and do good. Seek peace and pursue it. The eyes of the Lord are upon the righteous, and his ears are open unto their cry. Man, that's a real promise right there. The face of the Lord is against them that do evil, to cut off the remembrance of them from the earth. The righteous cry, and the Lord heareth, and delivereth them out of all their troubles. The Lord is nigh unto them that are of a broken heart, and saveth such as be of a contrite spirit. You know, right here, being a child of the King does not exempt us from trouble. Job 4:1 says, man that is born of a woman is of a few days and full of trouble. So we're not exempt from trouble, but we have somebody to be there with us through the trouble. You know, I feel sorry for those that don't. Life would be so much easier for them. But if you go down to the contrite spirit, I like this. The Lord is nigh unto them that are of a broken heart, and saveth such as be of a contrite spirit. For contrite means to be crushed down fine like dust. Been there once or twice. Thankfully, it's not been too much more than that. And I'm just going to interject this, that I believe that we go through some of these things. It's like a training program for the Lord. He's going to use you to do something else. You know, a diamond's made under heat and pressure. I ain't quite got to that stage yet, but it might be a decent lump of coal. But I think we go through some of these things so that the good Lord can use us as a tool. You know, that's just my thoughts. Many are the afflictions of the righteous. We're not exempt, but the Lord delivereth him out of them all. And verse 20 here is very interesting because it's speaking of Christ on the cross, referring to that. You can read about that in John 19, about verse 36, I think. But he keepeth all his bones, not one of them was broken. If you go all the way back to, I believe it's Exodus, that was the prerequisite for the Passover lamb. You couldn't break any bone. And Christ, when he hung on the cross, even though that that was the guard's job, was to speed up the process, was to break the legs so they'd suffocate faster. Well, he didn't do it. He was fulfilling prophecy. Why did he disobey? I'm sure it wasn't him willingly trying to fulfill the scriptures, but there's a reason he didn't do it. That was known only to him, I believe. Evil shall slay the wicked, and they that hate the righteous shall be desolate. And the word desolate here means condemned. So evil shall slay the wicked, and they that hate the righteous shall be condemned. The Lord redeemeth the soul of his servants, and none of them that trust in him shall be desolate. Oh. So the Lord redeemeth the soul of his servants, and none of them that trust in him shall be condemned. Pretty powerful statement right there. Before we go to Psalm 35, anybody got any questions or comments? Now this next psalm is called an imprecatory psalm. And there's several of them. I'll read them off to you, and if you don't get them all, you can come up and look at the notes. But 6, 12, 35, 37, 58, 59, 69, 79, 83, 109, 139, and 140 are all imprecatory psalms. To imprecate means to pray evil against or to invoke disaster upon, calling on God's divine judgment. And there's a lot of people who read these imprecatory psalms and they're offended that David would ask these things. It blew my mind, some of the comments I read on it. They were in danger of some of this, some imprecation. But we live in a world of sin, and we're not beyond having injustice done to us. It's how we handle that injustice is what sets us apart. David wasn't exempt from it. Christ wasn't exempt from it, certainly. And we won't be any different. David was praying against the enemies that were rebellious to God in these imprecatory psalms. And if you will go to, I believe it's Matthew chapter 23, and Jeremiah preached against them hard. But Matthew 23, our Lord himself goes through them like a dose of salt. I wasn't going to read it, but I think I'll read all of it, because it says, Then spake Jesus to the multitude and to his disciples, saying, The scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. All therefore whatsoever they bid you observe, that observe and do. But do not ye after their works. For they say and do not, so they don't do what they tell you to do. For they bind heavy burdens and grievous to be borne, and lay them on men's shoulders. But they themselves will not move them with one of their fingers. But all their works they do for to be seen of men. They make broad their phylacteries and enlarge the borders of their garments. Love the uppermost rooms at feasts and the chief seats in the synagogues, and greetings in the markets, and to be called of men, Rabbi, Rabbi. But be ye not called Rabbi, for one is your master, even Christ, and all ye are brethren. And call no man your father upon the earth, for one is your Father which is in heaven. Neither be ye masters, for one is your master, even Christ. But he that is greatest among you shall be your servant, and whosoever shall exalt himself shall be abased. And he that shall humble himself shall be exalted. But woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye shut up the kingdom of heaven against men. For ye neither go in yourselves, neither suffer ye them that are entering to go in. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye devour widows' houses, and for a pretense make long prayer. Therefore ye shall receive the greater damnation. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye compass sea and land to make one proselyte, and when he is made, you make him twofold more the child of hell than yourselves. Woe unto you, ye blind guides, which say, Whosoever shall swear by the temple, it is nothing, but whosoever shall swear by the gold of the temple, he is a debtor. Ye fools and blind, for whether is greater, the gold or the temple that sanctifieth the gold? And whosoever shall swear by the altar, it is nothing, but whosoever sweareth by the gift that is upon him, he is guilty. Ye fools and blind, for whether is greater, the gift or the altar which that sanctifieth the gift? Whoso therefore shall swear by the altar sweareth by it, and by all things thereon. And whoso shall swear by the temple sweareth by it, and by him that dwelleth therein. And he that shall swear by heaven sweareth by the throne of God, and by him that sitteth thereon. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye have paid tithe of mint and anise and cumin, and have omitted the weightier matters of the law, judgment, mercy, and faith. These ought ye to have done, and not to leave the other undone. Ye blind guides, which strain in a gnat and swallow a camel. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye make clean the outside of the cup and of the platter, but within they are full of extortion and excess. Man. Thou blind Pharisees, cleanse first that which is within the cup and platter, for the outside of them may be clean also. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye are like unto whited sepulchres, which indeed appear beautiful outward, but within are full of dead men's bones and of all uncleanness. Even so ye also outwardly appear righteous unto men, but within you are full of hypocrisy and iniquity. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! Because you build the tombs of the prophets and garnish the sepulchres of righteousness, and say, If we had been in the days of our fathers, we would not have been partakers with them in the blood of the prophets. Ha! Wherefore ye be witnesses unto yourselves that ye are the children of them which killed the prophets. Fill ye up then the measure of your fathers, ye serpents, ye generation of vipers. How can ye escape the damnation of hell? Wherefore, behold, I send unto you prophets and wise men and scribes, and some of them ye shall kill and crucify, and some of them shall ye scourge in the synagogues, and prosecute them from city to city, that upon you may come all the righteous blood shed upon the earth, from the blood of the righteous Abel unto the blood of Zacharias the son of Barachias, whom ye slew between the temple and the altar. Verily I say unto you, all these things shall come upon this generation. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, thou hast killed the prophets and stoned them which are sent unto thee. How often would I have gathered my children together, even as a hen gathereth her chicks under her wings, and you would not? Behold, your house is left unto you desolate, condemned. For I say unto you, ye shall not see me henceforth, till ye shall say, Blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord. If they're going to condemn David for writing these psalms, how much more are they going to condemn Christ for this? You know? Yeah. Like I said, you wouldn't believe some of the comments I saw. It was not good. You know, good and evil have been at battle since Genesis chapter 3. And we have to choose a side. There's no neutral ground. You're either for him or against him. I guess we'll stop right there because she's giving me the sign, but read Psalm 35 and 36 about 40 or 50 times. You'll be ready for next week. But Psalms 35 is broke down to protect me verses 1 through 10, reward me, 11 through 18, and vindicate me, 19 through 28. Read those, and we'll get into them next week, but that Psalm 34 there, man, I can see so many messages that Brother Jimmy has preached out of here over the 20 years I've been paying attention. Probably more than that, but I didn't pay attention for the last 20. So, but this Psalm 35, when David is calling for some judgment on these people, hey, you know, at that point in his life, and you know, we tend to look at the bad things that David did, which really aren't that many. He slipped up a time or two compared to how he tried to follow God. I mean, him and the Lord had a very, very special relationship. So we need to. I read something one time. I went to a business class, and they said if you do something good, this was a statistic then. This has been 25 years ago, but probably 25. But anyway, if you do something good for somebody, most people expect you to do good for them regardless. But if you do something good for them, they remember it for about 3 months. If you do good, something as they perceive as bad to them, they remember it for 19 years. That's the average. So, and we tend to remember the bad things a lot in the Bible, partially because I don't want to repeat them. And secondly, that's just the way we're wound. You know, good headlines don't sell. It's the bad headlines that sells, you know. So when you're going through here, you know, put yourself in David's place. Instead of standing outside looking in, try to be on the inside looking out. And that might help us to understand a little bit more about how these things work. Yes, sir. Right. 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 Brother Tony was saying that David was a man after God's own heart, and that's how he tries to picture David most of the time. What he's trying to do is put it in that light. Yeah. I mean, when I look at David's life, I got a long way to go. You know, I mean, he trusted in the Lord implicitly. You know, when he was in trouble, he didn't ask nobody else's opinion. He talked to the Lord. You know, which is what we all should do. Anybody else got anything? Take you a break there. We'll let Brother Jimmy get wound up on it.